Welcome to The Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor and also a family business advisor. In this show, we will be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family businesses, this podcast is for you. Today we're doing something a little different. We're rewinding the tape and bringing you one of our most impactful conversations from the past in a new segment we're calling Legacy on Repeat. These are the episodes that started it all. Foundational stories, powerful insights, and timeless lessons from families in business, experts in the field, and leaders who've shaped the way we think about legacy. Whether you're tuning in again or hearing it for the first time, there's always something to take away. So let's hit play on today's Legacy on Repeat. So welcome, Gerard.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining me today. I know it was under duress, but as you know, my podcast is about first to second generation families and helping them succeed and pass on their success. And I thought, we should give our story. So I guess the first question is, did you think we had a family business over the last, 30 some years?
Not originally. No, I think dawned on us, or on me, somewhere in the last 10 years of my working in the business.
Mm-hmm.
But up until that point in time, I just thought we were going to work and trying to make a living.
Yeah, and I think that's very, common with first generation businesses, right? You're just working to earn a living, to maintain your lifestyle, and you don't really realize you do have a family business. So having said that, yes, we didn't realize it right from the beginning. We didn't set out to have a family business. But, for the last 10 years, I guess, if you think about it, or 15 years since you've been retired, what do you think we did right when we kind of dawned on us that our kids are growing up and, there may be a spot for them?
What we did right from the get-go was we had a work-life balance that we were adamant about maintaining. So it wasn't all about making money, and it wasn't all about growing the business. It was all about spending time with family and growing a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it was until William, our oldest, was approaching university years that we thought, well, maybe one of them might like to come in the business. The way our business had fluctuated, the ups and downs of it, the hardships that I particularly went through, I sort of never really thought about bringing them into the business. So never spent a lot of time going, well, what could we do to help them get in here?
Mm-hmm.
And so that might have been what we did wrong, not thinking about the succession of the business at some point in time.
Mm. And I agree, it's not really what we did wrong, but what we didn't do. And that's the same story I hear over and over from clients, is that, the struggles that they have in their own industry or their own business, they tend to want to let their kids do something else. They don't really discuss it. Whether you're in trucking, you're in retail, you're in plumbing, it doesn't matter. You have struggles. Could be the cost of fuel. It could be, COVID, for example, shut down a lot of places. So, I think as a parent, the thing we want is something always to be better for our kids. And we don't tend to talk about it. We let them find their own way. And I personally think that, we should talk about opportunities and what we really do. I just had a meeting the other day with some clients, and they said, well, they don't really understand exactly what all their family business does. They know that it's successful. They know that, they do these certain things, but they don't understand truly what they do. And I think that, would you agree that that's really what we did with our kids? They knew a little bit about what we did, but not a lot.
Yeah, I think that's true. We made a lot of jokes about what we did. I think you're right. We thought that we wanted our children to do something a little more glamorous. I don't think either of us looked at our business as being, even though I was a recruiter for 40 years, it was fine for everybody else. Wasn't necessarily fine for my children, but in retrospect, yeah, I think I would have probably liked to have spent more time thinking about how they might succeed us in the business.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do that, but didn't mean it was too late. It's never too late, I guess. So, and there always is a right time. And I think looking at our boys and where they matured and what they endured and what their dreams were, I don't know that we necessarily made a mistake by not talking about it earlier.
But the one thing I think, and I'm sure a lot of other families feel the same way, is when you have two children, they're very different. And, one did come into the business and one didn't come into the business. And that's not to say that he won't maybe down the road, but do you think we should have maybe approached it differently? Or, again, we want to let them find their own way. But on the other hand, do you think it's our responsibility as a family and in business help or guide them, or instead of letting them sort of find their own way?
With both of them, they had a desire to go to university and figure out things their own way. And we weren't going to tell the youngest, Edward, what he could or couldn't do. So
we still can't.
And I'm sure there's lots of families that have children like that. So I wasn't going to get into the frustration of saying, well, no, you really should look at this and you should look at it hard, and you should, because he wasn't going to listen anyways.
No.
And it was only until a year or two ago when he was doing some cold calling for a landscaping company that I realized, boy, this kid, he could be in our business. But by then he's sort of going, well, I don't really want to do it anyways. He had another plan. Right. And he's happy with his plan. Yeah. And
that's also his brother, right? I mean, I'm sure other families find this, that there's not necessarily conflict, but there's I don't want to do what you're doing. Yeah. If you're eating yellow craft dinner, I want white craft dinner, or, if you're wearing blue, I want, purple.
Oh, no. There's a dynamic with our two sons.
It's like a competition. They're very close together. They're less than 18 months apart. They're very close in age and very close to doing the same things. Going to school, getting their license. There's only ever 18 months sort of difference between that. And I think that was a bit of an issue.
Yeah, and I'm sure like a lot of kids, they get along better when we're not around. And so maybe one day when we're not in the business and they can do it solely on their own, they might figure it out. But as long as they're competing for one of our attention, probably yours, then it's not going to work. So I don't worry. I have no sleepless nights about it. So I think we have to realize that they're going to choose their paths. We chose ours. The opportunity is here. If they want to talk about it, they can come and talk about it. We've never said they couldn't come and talk to us about it. And like we said, it's a unique business. It's not for everybody. No. And I'm not too sure the one that came into the business, William, would have ever come in if we sort of hadn't have taken him by the hand and said, you need to find something, and we think we have something for you. Otherwise, it wouldn't be his first choice either. No. It wasn't my first choice to come in his business.
Wasn't my first choice either.
So, but that you learn and you find things you like about it and you grow into the business. And I think he's going to do that, and he's going to do great. Yeah. And I think maybe Edward, somewhere down the line, after he's had his 8-year stint in the armed forces, might go, yeah, you know what? This is an opportunity for me to change careers, and I have a place where I can go and maybe fit in.
Well, and I think, when you go back to looking at the family business and us, working to maintain lifestyle and not really thinking of it as a family business, now that we have a son in the business who has taken over and running sort of, we call it a division, I think of it more as a family business because he has a son as well. And now I think of all the hard work that we did in the first 20 years to build it up. And as you say, all the ups and downs in the industries, that now I really don't want to see this end. Like, I do want to really work hard. And I think if I'd have thought of it as a family business or a potential family business at the beginning, I think it might have changed my opinion. And now I'm like, wow, you want to start your own business, you want to do something. There's a lot of work. You're starting with nothing, right? Where now you're coming into a business that's already up and running. And it's not, you don't have to be in sales. You don't have to be in money management. You don't have to be a planner. Maybe you're in business development. Maybe you want to be in HR. Like, there's so many more opportunities. And part of that is taking a look at the company and saying, if we need to hire or need a full-time marketing and communications person, we need to grow the business a little bit to be able to afford that. And I think that's the difference. And you're right in that for us, it was work-life balance. And we had lots of opportunities to grow and expand, and decided to really focus on the boys. And it was sort of after they were gone that you can kind of go gangbusters because you don't have that responsibility anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So when you retired well before Will came into the business, a couple of years, I think about 3 years, I think. Did that change anything, when you retired, your thoughts of the business or, me carrying on or growing?
No, but I think I realized that because we had two distinct portions to the business, the management of the advisory side of it that I ran, and then you had your own individual side, I think I realized that we'd done really well by making sure that you focused on growing your business, and then that had could have continuing success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where the children would have fit in anyways. They would never have fit into the portion of my side of the business. I've never really thought about, I did retire, but I've never thought about the fact that we still didn't have the business or that I was out of the business.
Mm-hmm.
I still help prospect and try and guide William, mentor him a little bit. Doesn't want to listen, but I haven't quit. I have a vested interest in wanting it to succeed and wanting you to succeed. And William to succeed. So no, it hasn't really changed very much from my perspective.
And I think that's important because when you look at family businesses, they can have different divisions or different sections of the business that it doesn't have to carry on in its current form. You can either grow it in a different direction. You could carve it off. Like in your case, we sold your portion. I didn't want to manage it. It was not something that I was interested in. Even hiring someone to run it, it was not something that I was interested in. And then, the next change was to then carve off another part of the business for William to take over. Mm-hmm. So we've done a lot. And I think that's what's really important to families is when you're talking to the next generation or the rising generation, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. You can structure it so that it can be torn apart easily and sold or transitioned or kept. And I think that's one of the things we did very well was setting the business up for future transitions, although we didn't realize it at the time. We just wanted to be able to stay married and couldn't work together on a day-to-day basis. Now, the fortunate thing for our offices when we were in the same offices that we were at opposite ends of the office, which was kind of nice. And I didn't see you coming and going. No. So that made it much easier. And we did different things. So again, you're not overlapping. There wasn't that confusion in the office on who's the boss. Is it Tammy or is it Gerard?
Oh, there was never any confusion with that.
This is true.
Jeez.
And it's still the same. But anyway, I think that's really, it. I think it was really good to let other families know that when you start off, you're not necessarily a family business. We probably all, didn't really talk to our kids or didn't think we should talk to our kids until they're almost adults, right? Or maybe they're adults or they're just finishing university and that's when you talk about the opportunities. But I think from our perspective, just talk about the opportunities in the business and let them, yes, make their own decisions, but to really make sure they understand what you do and see the future growth potential.
Yeah, businesses evolve. And so what we started with and how we started is not how they could start today or how they could grow a business.
No.
It's just not the same.
No, absolutely not.
And it's like values, they change. We have to make sure that when they come into the business or when they're thinking about coming in, that it's not going to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that bad habit of saying, well, when I started, I've said that way too many times to way too many young people because it was different. I don't know that it was easier. It may have been harder. I don't know. I don't figure out how people do things today, the way they do them, how they grow business, their business in the current market's not something I don't think I could do. Mm-hmm. So you have the conversations, you'll let people know there's opportunity, you let them know that they have a chance to grow what you've given them. Mm-hmm. Or selling to them.
Or selling them. Yeah, not necessarily. Let me be clear here. We don't want to give.
But then
potentially,
but then we have to step aside and as I've said to William, you're going to bloody your nose and you're going to fall down and you're going to scrape your knees. I'm not going to be there crying over it.
Yeah.
because you chose this, and it wasn't easy for us. You believe how many times we scraped our knees and had our noses bloodied. So don't expect us to be there to bail you out all the time.
No.
And I hope it doesn't happen to him. And I hope he grows the business in a way that maybe we wouldn't have.
Learning, that's a big learning curve, is actually when you do something wrong, is to understand, what went wrong and how to fix it. I think the biggest learning opportunity is when you mess up and you go, okay, I need to fix that. And we want to protect our kids and not have them mess up. But I do think it's, they have to do that. It's a rite of passage. They have to make mistakes in order to grow the business.
They're going to make it. And I think the hardest part from my perspective, and I probably am speaking for you in this as well, is we have a son who doesn't want our help.
Yeah.
Doesn't want to listen.
As a lot of families have.
Yeah, and I bet you we're not unique in this. And I think it's very difficult to approach him. I know he gets annoyed. I know it.
Yep.
On the one hand, I'm very happy about it, because I think to myself, okay, he wants to stand up on his own 2 feet. He wants to figure it out on his own. He's always been like that. I want to figure this out on my own. I don't want anybody's help.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I go, oh my God, what a waste of all this wealth of knowledge your mother has, or I have, and you're not the least bit interested.
Yeah.
I can't figure that one out.
That's part of a family business and part of a family dynamics, right?
Well, I was preparing for this little podcast here a couple of days ago. I was thinking about this, and I thought to myself, well, geez, he's no different than I was. I hated listening to managers. I hated listening to my bosses 50 years ago. I hate to admit it's 50 years, but I didn't really like to hear it. Most of the knowledge I got and learned from was from other, as a manager or from advisors. I mimicked what they did. So I didn't care about what my manager said. He was just an old guy. What do you know? They made him a manager because he wasn't a good salesman. That's sort of my approach. So
is that why you went into management?
Isn't that what became of me? So I shouldn't be upset about it with him, and I should be able to sit back and be proud of him for what he's accomplishing, and I am. So, and I see that with other family businesses. Guys I know, I was talking to a guy the other day who's super successful, and his son's taken over a business and grown it substantially, and he's scratching his head going, "Why, I couldn't have done that." And I'm going, "Yeah, but you gave it to him." And he goes, "No, I didn't. He took something and made it better."
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that's what happens with William.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, another lesson for family businesses, is to let your children, they're not children anymore, they're adults, and let them be themselves. They're not you. They're never going to be you. But that doesn't mean that they can't grow and evolve the business.
No.
Anyway, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in today. Is there any final words? What's your biggest takeaway from today that you would tell our listeners?
Oh, I don't know. I'm pretty laid back right now, and this retirement thing's good for me. I don't want to be.
I'm loving it because, my laundry is done. The groceries are done. It's like, it's perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to work as long as possible.
Aren't we just living the life?
We are. So the final word is just listen to your wife. Happy wife, happy life.
Spouse. Let's just say listen to your spouse.
True.
We'll
True
make it
enough.
a two-way street.
True enough. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So welcome, William. William is my son, who is actually in the business, who took over part of the business, the benefits and insurance side. So welcome to the podcast, William.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up with parents building a business.
Growing up with parents building the business, when I was younger, I don't exactly remember what they were doing. I knew that they worked. I knew that they worked together, but I didn't totally grasp that they were building a business together. I understood that they were doing something related to insurance, but I couldn't have elaborated on it. Something to do with money, couldn't have elaborated on it. But I do know that they were always working.
Well, and if you listeners have heard before, I've mentioned that one of my sons had made me money so I wouldn't go to work all the time. And that was William, because we used to say, he would ask, why are you going to work? And I would say, I'm going to make money. So he made me money. So that's good that you understood that we actually dealt with money. Did you feel that you missed out on any time with us while we were building a business?
No, I don't think I ever felt like you weren't around. It would always be a give or take. It was either one or the other, either you or dad, unless it was a family vacation. Dad was always home when we got off the bus getting home from school. And I think he had a little bit more flexibility, felt like he came on more of the field trips if there was a chaperone needed than anyone else. It did feel like you were always working though.
And that's interesting because I went on the field trips when you boys were younger, but as you were older, it was more important that dad went. So it's interesting what people remember as time goes by. But you're right. We tried to make every event, although we could never do it together because building a business requires a lot of time and energy. Did you ever think you'd end up working in the business?
Yeah, I think I always knew I was going to end up in the business in some capacity. I didn't necessarily know what I would be doing or what even you guys were doing, but I did always know that I wanted to do something along those lines. I saw how well the business had treated us as a family, and I think that it was logical for me to end up doing what you were doing.
And do you think that we talked about opportunities early enough?
No. I don't
No.
ever remember having that conversation of what we do, you could do as well.
Yeah.
I remember, you working with us on financial planning, but even when I went to school, I had no idea what to take to even get into the same ballpark that what you guys were doing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that they were separate licenses that you had to pursue that didn't line up necessarily with the given degrees
Right.
that you could pursue academically.
It's a very hard thing. And I think for our listeners, if you're a first generation business like we were before you came into the business, which is now second, and hopefully your son will come in as a third generation, which would be awesome. But I don't think as a family, we really even realized that there was a family business or an opportunity. And I just want our listeners to know that regardless of what industry you're in, there's always going to be that problem when you're a first generation business that you don't even realize you had a family business or you want to talk to your children about it. And when or how really do you remember the conversation starting about us transitioning part of the business to you?
I wouldn't say till after a couple of years of working together. It probably would have been around the time that I had gotten some ownership stake. So 3 years ago-ish? I guess just before the pandemic. Maybe when the idea of the transition started to happen because that door opened for you to take on other partners. But I don't think we ever discussed your transition out of the business or what that looked like for myself, take on a bigger chunk of ownership at some point. It just felt like this was something that you started and we just happened to be there.
As you know, that's very typical in a first generation business, right? When you have a strong leader, that sometimes those conversations don't happen. What would you have liked me to do a little bit differently?
I think that we could have started talking about it earlier, been a little bit more clear with what your intentions were. Even when leading up to the point where we were making that transition before you stepped out entirely, I think most of us felt blindsided. We had no idea that you were just going to completely divest yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We knew that you wanted to sell part of your business and to bring on another partner that could help grow it and keep it long term. But it went from we're all going to work together on this moving forward to I'm done, good riddance, goodbye.
Was it really that severe?
Yeah, and I think everyone that was a part of those conversations felt that way,
Yeah.
except for you.
Well, again, I think what happens is you have it in your head and it's rolling around in your head, but it doesn't come out, which is the issue about communication. And we've been talking about communication. We'll talk more and more about communication because a lot of times it's in our head and we thought we've had that conversation and we haven't. Again, I apologize for not having those conversations earlier. What, other than having the conversation earlier, is there anything that I did right? Because we know that the whole reason for this podcast is to help other families be able to keep the business within the family and not to make all the mistakes that that, other families have done, and particularly me, which why I went and got all this extra training and took all my knowledge and tried to make it much more simple for other families coming up behind me. What did I do well, do you think?
Starting the family conversations, but at the same time, like, you did leave Ed out of those. So he was never privy to that. It was really just you, Dad, myself, and then Caverly, my wife, who are a part of those conversations. And I don't remember the order of the timing between when the family conversation started and the ownership stake had happened, because it's all kind of a blur at that point. There was just so much going on. Like, I do remember having conversations in the backyard about it, and you being open about what your vision for us was, and an idea of what you were expecting. I haven't been through enough succession events or transitions to really know what you did right versus what you did wrong. From a child's perspective, what I would have maybe had hoped for was a bit more guidance with moving forward, or what was happening, information on how this was going to go. When you made your mind up, I would say you were ready to let go of the vine. You didn't hold back and hold on and keep, you let me run with it.
Yeah.
You gave me the confidence to let me figure out my own way forward and figure out my own vision. Which, rather than, helicoptering over me saying, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right.
And it's very hard not to do that, by the way.
I'm sure it was. So I appreciate that you let me try to figure this out on my own. And, you did speak up from time to time when you felt that I was doing something wrong, or when you would hear something from someone. But
well, and again, I think it's more the guidance as opposed to doing something wrong. It's, because I come at it with 30 some years of experience, and you come at it with, 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But one of the things when you talk about not including Edward, your brother, was the fact that as kids, and I'm sure other families will relate to this, that you guys wouldn't work together for anything. Ed didn't want what you wanted, you didn't want what he wanted, and it was quite a mess. If you wanted white craft dinner, he wanted orange craft dinner, or vice versa. I can't remember. If one wanted pizza, the other wanted pasta. I mean, there was nothing we could do together. And Eddie always said I would never work with Will unless I was his boss. So I'm sure that, and again, I think learning from all the education and stuff that I've done since this transition, and learning about family dynamics, that was just something that I could have overcome by having family meetings earlier. Now, we do have the odd family meeting now. We're not quite as diligent as we could. But how do you like the family meetings, or do you feel the family meetings are of value?
Yeah, I think there's value in having the family meetings and making sure that everyone's on the same page and knowing what's happening in every aspect of kind of everyone's new businesses and what's going on a personal level. I do think there's value in that. We didn't really do that growing up. Like, we had, we made sure we all sat around at the dinner table and
talked about
present,
charities,
but I didn't really. It's not like we had these deep, meaningful conversations at the dinner table growing up. And I think it's not like we have a regularly scheduled family meeting, but we do tend to get together, the four of us, a fair bit and chat about whatever. Could there be maybe more structure to some of those meetings when we're looking to get something accomplished? I don't know. I'm not the expert, but
what about a facilitator? Do you think that our family meetings would have been better had there been a third party facilitating?
For sure. I have a hard time. It's the separation of church and state. I have a hard time separating you telling me things from a parenting level, from to a business owner or partner level. It just feels like you're talking to me like your child. And that's always been the hardest thing for me to overcome. And then even when you're having the family meetings, I sit there and it feels like I'm being dictated, talked down to by my parents, or told what I'm supposed to be doing as a 20-some-year-old.
Right.
Sitting across from both of my parents, just rattling off things for me to do and what I'm doing wrong or what I should be doing. And I do feel that it may have been more, whether it's more value or less impartiality coming from a third party mediator. I think that would have probably helped, and I may not have felt so like contentious with what I'm being told.
And, and this is what I'm trying to instill through these podcasts, is to understand that I did a lot of things wrong, and I'm trying to correct that so that family businesses stay within the family. And even if you are a first generation family and don't realize you have a family business, it's important that you open up lines of communication. And again, even though I know what I'm doing, I still can't facilitate my own family meetings. William, what is your one piece of advice you'd give to our listeners?
I think it would be that it's never too early to start the conversation with your kids. I think there's a lot of value in your kids understanding that you have a business and that they can be a part of that business in a bunch of different capacities, whether or not they actually want to work in the business or be a shareholder on a board level. Indoctrinating them into the business at an earlier stage, I think it will be beneficial for them.
So do you think you're going to start talking to your son, Teddy, earlier than we started talking to you?
I think so. Obviously he's only 2 right now, so it's a little early to really start those conversations. But I mean, I do want to begin talking to him about that as soon as he's, old enough to understand what I'm saying, and to have him start to think and understand about what it's like to be a part of a family business, and let him really decide, how he wants to be involved in it moving forward.
Great.
But yeah, as soon as I can, I do think I will start to have that conversation with them.
Good. Well, listen, I really appreciate you coming in and being open and honest here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So welcome, Edward, to my podcast on first generation families and understanding, a little more about first generation businesses, family businesses, and sort of what we did right and what we did wrong. Because as you know, the whole purpose of Blue Roots is to help family businesses transition from first to second gens or second to third. But here's the one question, and I've had this discussion with your father, and I'm at this discussion with your brother. It's going to be the same thing, and this is for other families to realize that, they're no different, and we're no different than anybody else. But what was it like, from your perspective, growing up with parents who were building a business?
I guess it was a little unique because most of my friends' parents had jobs that were a lot more clearly defined. You have a friend whose mom's a social worker, a police officer.
Right.
One guy sells paper products like Cascade, bathroom tissue, facial tissue, not Kleenex, all that stuff. But it's a lot more concrete than what does your dad do? A bunch of things. I'm not really sure. What does your mom do? A lot of things. They have a company. It's called Bus Financial, but I don't really get what goes on over there because it changes pretty often with all the various things. So it's a little different, I suppose.
Yep. And I think this is part of what we're talking about, is to understand sort of what we've done wrong and what we've done right. And I think it's very common for first generation family businesses not to talk to their kids really about what they do. So did you ever think, as a kid, that you would end up working in the business or not working in the business?
I guess you just think the business is there, so odds are you'll end up there eventually. Of course I have not, but it just always seems like that's there. So obviously it's a fallback option.
a fallback option?
Exactly.
I'm
Should
sure
other
that's what
things not
every
work
parent
out?
wants to hear is the business that they've worked hard to build is a fallback option.
Well, it's there, so it's not going anywhere. As long as your parents still love you, you're probably still got a decent chance.
So, again, growing up, what did you think, would it have changed your opinion of the business if you understood a little bit earlier what exactly we did or what the opportunities were?
Maybe a little bit. They had take your kid to work day, maybe around grade 8. And I went with my dad, and he had a pretty slow day that day, so we didn't really do anything. So that definitely didn't help. I guess it did seem pretty good because it was a slow day. So you're like, what does your dad do? Well, he read the news for a little while, and then he said he had a meeting, but he may have gone golfing. I'm not too sure. That may have been the meeting. It seems like a pretty good life.
Well, and I think that's part of the issue. If you're in a business that is, say, retail sales or a restaurant or manufacturing, you can see things done. When you're in an office, if you're a lawyer, an accountant, an advisor, sometimes it's very difficult to see the work because you take somebody to work and you're sitting at a desk. Like you don't see, stocks being traded. You don't see insurance being printed. There's nothing to actually see. And I think that is true in a lot of businesses, right? It's hard to bring kids into a business that there's not something concrete to see. And so you said about it being a fallback issue. Do you ever see yourself really coming back, or coming into the business at all?
Yeah, maybe in the future. It's always there. If I don't end up loving the Navy that much in the future, the contracts are 8 years at a time. So
yeah,
in 8 years, a lot of things can change. Maybe I don't want to sign for 5 more. Maybe I do. Maybe I want to come back to London, Ontario. I do always tell everybody that Ontario is the greatest place in Canada and the greatest place in the world.
Well, it pretty much is.
Close your eyes, think about Canada. You just thought about Ontario. So obviously it's better than BC. So it'd be nice to come back here eventually.
Well, I think people might disagree that they like the weather in Victoria a little more than Ontario. However, this year, which is 2024, we were having a lovely winter so far from a driving perspective. Not very pretty, but did you really think about the business in a way that it shaped your life with trips and lifestyle? Did you ever think about that, compared to your friends?
I mean, you definitely noticed a little bit of a difference. I remember when we were super little, my friend Connor came over, and when his dad came to pick us up and bring us to his house, he said, "Does Edward live in a mansion? It has 3 bathrooms." And Connor's dad said, "We have 3 bathrooms. It's no different."
No, and we have a small house actually, which is pretty funny, right?
So I guess when people know you're a business person, maybe they get a little bit of a fancier connotation than, someone who his dad's a police officer. He makes good money, I suppose. But, business seems a little fancier, whether you're running your own restaurant or...
Right.
Or
it's just
whatever.
yours, more control maybe?
Yeah, you feel more powerful, I guess, as a boss, as a self-employed person. She does it on her own instead of a...
And takes all the downsides of on your own as well. Now, interesting, we've lived in the same house for 32 years. So you've grown up here. It's a small house, but I think what makes it sort of overwhelming a little bit is it's a walkout. And so it looks like 3 floors, which gives it a little bigger, looks like a bigger place, but it's really all not all that big. But what about from a school perspective? I mean, going on trips and stuff, did you find, there was a difference between always having a parent there, being flexible?
I mean, as a little kid, I didn't want my parents there. So the fact that you guys could go, I mean, it's nicer, in hindsight. But when you're little, I mean, you kind of want to go have fun with your friends, but your parents are chaperones because they can afford to come along and they can take a little bit of time off work. So, so it's nice. When you're older, it's nicer than when you're little. When you're little, you just want to have fun.
And how do you feel about your brother in the business and you not in the business?
How do I feel about my brother? He's my brother. I grew up with him. So there's a love-hate relationship right there. He grew to be taller than me. That's a problem. I'll never get over that one. I wasn't fed enough. But no, it's good. It's good that he's there because then at least, someone's still in the family business while I'm way over on the other side of the country. So it's nice seeing the family business continue being a family business, knowing he's there, knowing now I know more of what you guys do and know what he does.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good for him.
Now, let's assume that you didn't come into the family business, that you decided to stay in the Navy. It was a great career and you've moved on it and you have children. Would you encourage them to look at the family business? Like, even though it's skipping a generation, I think this is important when you look at family business. I had said this when I was talking with your dad that, didn't really think of it as a family business. Now I have a son in the business and a grandchild that I truly want to embrace this family business. And do you really consider that a family business that you would encourage your children to even look at down the road?
Yeah, because as I ended up joining the military mostly because hearing about my dad being in the Army way back when he was in his late teens, early 20s, and then he got into business.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of hereditary there, he did it and it seemed like a ton of fun. So I did it. And then he got into he made the family business. He didn't get into the family business situation there. He just started one with you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of nice saying this is what he did. And then he did that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I would, should I love the military? I would say you should go give it a shot. And then also hopefully your uncle, is still working on Bus Financial or Blue Roots, and you can go talk to him for work. It'd be nice.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice having the lineage, I suppose.
Yep. And is there anything that you think that we could have done differently?
Maybe if I understood the company a little bit better and not just known it was business,
Mm-hmm.
finance,
Yeah.
sell insurance, really what goes into selling insurance, how does it work?
Yeah.
How does financial planning work? I just remember being 8 years old and having a GIC and understanding I can go see the movies one time a year or I can put money in my GIC. And that was a little complicated at a young age.
But did you not go through university without a student loan?
Yeah, I didn't go into debt, so that was pretty nice.
Yeah.
So it definitely taught me a little bit more financial literacy than the average student there. So I'm happy there.
Yes. And I think, having you guys on spending strategies early on in life was very important to understand the cost of things. And so at least we did that right. Might not have got you into the business, but maybe in 8 years you'll come back and join the family businesses. We got a couple that you can look at. But what is the one thing you would say to other kids or, second generation business owners? Would you give advice to the parents to say, do this? Would you give advice to the kids and say, do this? Or what's your parting advice to first and second gens?
Probably just get the kids involved a little bit. Will, my brother, and I, we clean the office a bit on the weekends. And so you'd go to the office, but it's never when people were working. So you never really understood what people were doing, what jobs are available, what all the employees do, what your parents do. So getting the kids involved in the company. You see it in restaurants, you see kids taking orders and stuff quite often and being the cashier. So they obviously get a better understanding of how it all works. But for other companies, it's a little bit tougher, I think, to get your children involved. So finding some way to bring them during business hours or after school or something, just so they can see it a little bit more and kind of develop an affinity for it.
I could have had you delivering coffee and tea and water to clients or answering the phone or being the guest. Remember when Trigger was at the office? Trigger was our dog, and he was the host. So he would meet everybody at the door. So we could have had you do that.
Mm-hmm. He was also the world's smallest security guard. He had his little bandana.
That's true.
No thefts happen when he's barking at you at the door.
No.
So
True enough. Anyway, well, I really appreciate you joining us today. And again, I'm hearing some things for the first time. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on and scheduling a family chat. Learned about that one in your book. Good information. So, thank you.
Thanks. So I want to thank my family for participating today. I know it was not the easiest for them and certainly not the easiest for me. But the purpose of this is just to let you know that, even when you're in a family business and you know what you're doing, you make mistakes. And my goal is to help other families not made the same mistakes I did. And clearly by listening to my family, you know that we didn't start the conversations early enough and maybe have real deep, open communication early on. So anyway, thank you for joining us. And I hope you enjoyed listening to All My Dirty Laundry, and stay tuned for future podcasts. Thank you very much. If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find Blue Roots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.